Komodo dragon!
Imagine your own home, the comfort of a familiar living room, the sanctuary of walls that keep danger outside. Then imagine that same sanctuary sheltering a predator that belonged to another age. Not a stray dog, not a venomous snake, but a creature that carried the weight of prehistory with jaws strong enough to crush bone speed that could outrun a man and venom engineered to stop a heartbeat. What happens when admiration turns into arrogance, when the thing you nurture becomes a thing that destroys you? This is animal instincts, where the wild reminds us that no matter how hard we try to contain it, nature strikes without hesitation. This voice reaches across many miles, and I can't help but ask, where are you as you listen to it? This is the story of Stephen K. Gober, a man from the colony, Texas, who believed he could bring the untamable into his living room. At 59 years old, Stephen's suburban home stood out not for its rose gardens or trimmed hedges, but for what lurked behind closed doors, a relic of another world. In chasing his passion, he crossed a line that could never be walked back. Stephen wasn't a casual pet keeper. For decades, he'd been part of a niche community, fascinated with creatures most people only saw in zoos or late-night documentaries. His interest wasn't a hobby, it was a lifelong obsession rooted in boyhood afternoons spent devouring books on reptiles, imagining himself among jungles and riverbanks far from Texas suburbs. He started with snakes and lizards. Then, as his skill and confidence grew, so did his ambition. His enclosures were cutting-edge, climate-controlled habitats designed to mimic the wild. His knowledge of feeding patterns, temperature gradients, and environmental stressors was encyclopedic. To him, these weren't pets. They were living testaments to evolution, puzzles to be solved, living blueprints of survival. Professionally, Stephen was a quiet but respected man, organized, exacting, methodical. Those same qualities fueled his private menagerie. He believed he could read the subtle signs of reptilian behavior, the flick of a tongue, the tilt of a head, the change in breathing rhythms. That confidence gave him a sense of control, one he thought could never be broken. His friends and relatives, though puzzled by his choices, saw him as a man who lived by passion. They admired the devotion even when they didn't share it. To them, he was a pioneer in his suburban wilderness. But at the heart of that wilderness lived something more dangerous than any tiger or lion. It was older, heavier, and more primitive. A Komodo dragon, a full-grown male 11 feet from nose to tail, weighing nearly 150 pounds. To grasp what that meant, you need to understand the animal itself. The Komodo dragon isn't simply a large lizard. It is the last of a lineage of reptilian giants, the apex predator of its Indonesian homeland. Forged by brutal volcanic landscapes and scarcity, it is a hunter that relies on patience, speed, and a weapon few mammals can match, a bite that delivers both massive trauma and a lethal cocktail of venom that prevents blood from clotting. Survival against such a creature isn't a matter of strength, it's a matter of chance. They are built for dominance, thick coiled muscle, hidden under scales that feel like ancient armor. Every movement is deliberate, efficient. Their eyes, cold and unblinking, scan for weakness the way a machine might. But their most terrifying weapon lies inside the mouth. Serrated teeth jagged like rows of miniature shark blades, designed not just to pierce, but to shred flesh with every shake of the head. For decades, people believed the deadliness of their bite came from bacteria festering in their saliva. The truth proved darker. Scientists confirmed that Komodo dragons possess venom glands in the lower jaw. That venom doesn't kill instantly. It attacks from within, thinning the blood, lowering pressure, leaving victims weak, dizzy, and bleeding out. One bite is all it takes. The lizard can then stalk the victim for miles, waiting as the venom does its work, reclaiming its prize when the body finally collapses. That was the reality Stephen lived with in his Dallas suburb. His dragon was not a domesticated companion. It was an apex predator designed by evolution to hunt, to kill, and to survive. And keeping such a creature confined inside a private home was like balancing on a knife's edge. The real question was never if something would happen, it was when. Warning signs always come first. Subtle shifts almost invisible until it's too late. Perhaps a tail strike against the glass. Perhaps a lunge that stopped inches short, or maybe a narrowing of the eyes, a tensing of the body, the flick of a tongue that Stephen misread as curiosity instead of hunger. Even the most seasoned handlers admit that
All right,
constant
gentle now,
vigilance is
gentle.
exhausting. And one moment of distraction, one lapse in judgment is all it takes. Reptiles don't bond the way dogs or cats do. They don't feel loyalty. Their instincts are stripped to the core. Hunt, feed, dominate. Stephen's years of successful handling may have created a dangerous illusion that control was possible, that respect was enough. October 18, 2019. A Friday morning in the Colony, Texas. Neighbors prepared for the weekend, the crisp air of autumn settling in. Inside his home, Stephen followed what should have been another routine. Entering the Komodo's room, perhaps feeding, perhaps cleaning. A ritual performed countless times before. There were no screams heard through the neighborhood, no crashing sounds, no alarm. Only silence broken hours later by the chaos of flashing lights and sirens. Something had gone fatally wrong. The medical examiner's report was unambiguous. Incised wounds to the neck, precise serrated tears, consistent with the bite of a Komodo dragon. This was no nip, no accident. It was a calculated strike, sudden and lethal. Picture the attack. 150 pounds of reptilian muscle launching forward with explosive speed. The gaping maw, the slash of teeth tearing into flesh. The jaws locking, thrashing, ripping deeper with every violent shake. And while the mechanical trauma alone was devastating, the venom began its work immediately. Blood pressure, crashing vision, swimming weakness, overwhelming. Reports suggest Stephen fell, striking his head on the floor. But investigators concluded this was secondary. The fall didn't cause the fatal injuries. The dragon's assault did. And in those moments, the line between man and ancient predator was erased. The fall, the venom, the confusion, it was a perfect storm. But what came next erased any doubt. Reports confirmed what investigators feared. Stephen Gober's body had been partially consumed. This was not just an attack, it was predation. To a Komodo dragon, an incapacitated human is indistinguishable from any other quarry. Once down, you are prey. The silence in that suburban room must have been chilling, broken only by the wet tearing of flesh and the faint rattle of fading breath. To the dragon, there was no malice, no rage, only instinct. The cold mechanics of survival honed over millions of years. Later that day, a friend concerned after repeated unanswered calls arrived at the house on Longhorn Drive. The street was quiet, lined with trimmed lawns and parked cars. Nothing to hint at the nightmare inside. But the moment they crossed the threshold of that back room, the air hit heavy, metallic, and unmistakable. What they saw was seared into memory. Stephen motionless on the floor, the massive Komodo dragon lingering near him, ancient eyes unblinking, its jaws marked with evidence of what had occurred. The 911 call that followed was panicked, almost incoherent, cutting through the calm of the Texas afternoon. Within minutes, the colony police, paramedics, and animal control units raced to the scene. Neighbors gathered on porches as the convoy of flashing lights flooded the block. At first, details were scarce. A man dead, an exotic reptile involved. No one outside the house could piece together the full picture. For the first responders, entering the residence was unlike any standard call. The presence of an apex predator inside a confined home changed every protocol. Caution dictated every step. Guns drawn, but fingers off triggers. Medical bags ready, but still at a distance. Animal control specialists were summoned, their equipment designed for zoo escapes, not private living rooms. Inside, the work was grim and deliberate. Investigators documented every detail: blood spatter patterns, clothing tears, bite geometry, even the claw marks scored into the floor. Paramedics and officers alike, hardened by years of field experience, were shaken by the brutality. They had seen traffic accidents, shootings, overdoses, but nothing compared to this. A Komodo dragon in a quiet Texas home feeding on its owner. Securing the animal was a mission of its own. 11 feet of scale and muscle, 150 pounds of unpredictability and venom still coursing through its saliva. Any sudden movement could provoke another strike. Specialized poles, reinforced crates, and calculated teamwork were required to corner, subdue, and restrain the reptile without further injury to humans or to the dragon itself. Every command was shouted crisp and loud, every step rehearsed in real time. Meanwhile, Stephen's body was carefully lifted, wrapped, and transported to the medical examiner's office. His friend, the one who made the discovery, remained outside under questioning, visibly shaken hands, trembling voice uneven, as they recounted what they had seen. Neighbors watched from across the street, whispers darting through the crowd. To them, it was unthinkable. A man they saw mowing his lawn, waving from the driveway, now gone in such a savage and surreal way. What exactly had happened inside that house? The answer began to emerge with the autopsy. The ambiguity surrounding Stephen Gober's death fell away, replaced by a clinical certainty that only sharpened the horror. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner's office left no room for doubt. The cause of death was incised wounds to the neck, delivered by the serrated teeth of a Komodo dragon. The manner of death was ruled accidental. This was not a fall, not a post-mortem encounter. It was a direct fatal assault. The confirmation that Stephen's remains had been partially consumed locked in the horrifying truth his dragon had crossed the line from captive animal to apex predator. The story exploded. Man killed by pet Komodo dragon. Headlines blared across Texas, then across the country. Camera crews crowded Longhorn Drive, broadcasting the contrast between manicured lawns and the savagery inside one home. Neighbors, many unaware of the scale of Stephen's collection, expressed disbelief. Some called it reckless to keep such animals in a residential area. Others were unsettled, asking the uncomfortable question, can something like a Komodo dragon ever be called a pet? The tragedy ignited debate far beyond the colony. Animal rights advocates pointed to Stephen's death as evidence of the dangers of private ownership of large predators. Calls rang out for stricter regulations, even outright bans on Komodo dragons, venomous snakes, alligators, and constrictors in suburban settings. Social media split sharply, one side defending personal freedom, the other demanding public safety. For Stephen's family and friends, the loss was layered with public spectacle. Their grief played out under the glare of cameras and commentary. The brutality of his death and the details impossible to ignore made mourning all the harder. Legally, no crime had been committed. The focus shifted to the animals left behind. Stephen's Komodo dragon and his other exotics were seized by animal control and transferred into the custody of specialized facilities, zoos and sanctuaries where their power and needs could be managed securely. It was not retribution against the animal. It was a matter of safety and responsibility. Behind the scenes, agencies compiled reports, reviewed permit systems, and examined gaps in oversight. The incident became a case study in how human ambition collides with untamed biology. Policy conversations followed, weighing the rights of private collectors against the risks posed to communities. Stephen Gober's story became more than a neighborhood tragedy. It became a parable, a chilling reminder that expertise and passion cannot rewrite the laws of nature. The Komodo dragon had acted without malice, without intent. It did what its kind has done for millions of years, identified weakness, struck, and fed. That is the lesson. No matter how advanced our enclosures, how thorough our knowledge, or how strong our sense of control, there are creatures whose essence cannot be domesticated. Their instincts are absolute. Their power is ancient. Their true place is in the wild. And in October of 2019, in a quiet Texas suburb, that wildness broke through the walls of a home. It claimed a life. It left behind a warning that still echoes. Sometimes the most dangerous choice is bringing the dragon home. Because when you do, its embrace may be your last.